Hey everyone, this is Phi. I'm checking out Turbo Wings X. This is part of the Reddit Feedback Friday. Looking for some feedback, so we're going to give that to them. This is going to be a quick play test. The game appears to be fairly simple. It is, as they say, a reinvention of the popular Bird and Pipes mobile game. So of course they're referring to Flappy Bird. But this is a 3D game, so it should be a little bit different. Let's see, they say guide the bird in its quest to avoid the pipes and reach higher scores as you go on. Things will only get faster and more dangerous. Unlock faster starting speeds with when reaching higher scores and give yourself a boost towards bigger scores. So it seems like you're supposed to get high scores in order to get higher scores from the way they explain it here. So it's kind of interesting. In any case, I do have the game running here. It's got some loud music. You're not hearing it right now because it mutes when it's not focused, but you're about to hear it because we're going to hop into this. Let's get rid of that overlay and let's try this out. Alright, so it is a little bit loud. It looks like we can actually turn off the music over here if we want to. Music's kind of just loud by its nature, I think. Hopefully it's not too annoying in the capture. I turned it down a little bit, but might try turning it down a little more, maybe. Just a little bit. Alright, in any case, yeah, I haven't seen anything past the screen. This is a windowed game, so it might look a little blurry. I have it kind of the window maximized here, but it should be... It actually looks like it has a little bit of a border in the capture, so maybe it'll be pretty sharp, but I don't think... Alright, so we have to kind of unlock these apparently by getting scores, it appears, which suggests that we can't get the highest possible scores starting out. You have to kind of unlock this apparently. So the controls are down here. So W is vertical flap and then A and D is horizontal flap. You got some credits. Unreal Engine, avoid the pipes. Alright, let's go ahead and click start. Oh. Oh, that's very weird. Okay. Alright. Oh, you could just hold the button. Okay, okay. So it's kind of weird. It's not really a flap as much as... See, the left and right is different from pressing up, because it does kind of... Ooh. It does kind of... Oh, the music is so loud. I feel like I can't talk over it. Okay, I turned it down for me. It should be okay in the capture, but yeah, it actually feels like you're kind of tied to a grid almost. So it's a little weird. I almost feel like I should have oh, I can use... Ooh, I might be able to do that even. Alright, so I can use the arrow keys and the WASD. I'm talking instead of playing, that's why I keep running into things. But what I was going to say is it almost feels like I should use a different hand for, like, one hand doing left and right and one doing the vertical, which is kind of like a jump. Like if you can imagine with a gamepad, you'd have like a jump button on your right hand and then your direction control input on the left. So with that in mind, that's kind of what I feel like I should be doing instead of doing it all in one hand. Because it feels like it's pretty separate feeling, the two different actions, moving horizontally and moving vertically in this game. So because of the fact that I can use WASD and the arrow keys at the same time, I can kind of do that. So I'm gonna try doing it that way. I keep seeing my cursor on the screen. It's annoying over there. So it's very hard to... For one thing, you don't get a lot of fine control on your left and right. Sometimes you just want like a very slight upwards boost there, and you just want to like barely tap it. If you press it for very long at all, you go quite high, and on the same token, if you don't press it for a while, it starts dropping very rapidly. Alright, so there you don't have a lot of fine control on your left and right like I mentioned a moment ago, so sometimes you kind of want a little more, it appears. So the left and right almost feels like you're sort of on a grid of sorts. You, for instance, can't really squeeze in between things like that. So I would have had to go use more vertical motion apparently. So yeah, it's almost like the left and the right, like I mentioned, it's almost sort of like it's on a grid. But the level doesn't necessarily seem to line up with that. It does appear that it's probably procedurally generated to some extent here, I'm going to assume. So I think I can squeeze past that. I don't know how forgiving the... Ooh. See, that seems very unforgiving. And the fact that this basically goes to white like the instant I fail, kind of... It doesn't give me a lot of information about the fact that I failed, like how forgiving or unforgiving the hitboxes are, because it didn't really look to me like I hit the thing yet. Because sometimes it seems like I can get pretty close. That obviously wasn't yet, but yeah, if I run into something, I'd like to still be able to see myself like in the game for a moment. This is driving I know I'm saying a lot of things. It's driving me crazy that I have to click. Oh, okay, I can press any key to try again. So I didn't read this yet, but I keep clicking this to play, and then my cursor is like left on the screen here, and it's like I need to move it away. It's driving me nuts. So that being said, what was I saying? I'd like to see myself on screen after I die, so I could kind of see like where I failed and everything. If it just instantly takes you out and back into that menu screen, then you don't really get a lot of feedback as to like almost like what you did wrong. I mean, obviously you ran into something, but you didn't really see kind of the margins. And sometimes it does feel as though like maybe I shouldn't have failed. Like it didn't quite seem like I actually ran into something. So between that and the fact that it doesn't really show me myself after I fail, it just kind of yanks me out into that other screen instantly. Something that can kind of make you a little suspicious almost. That being said, I guess we can try and get a little further here. This level so far doesn't appear to be very difficult. So something you can consider is, see, that did not look like I ran into anything at all. I thought I was home free. That was weird. But you could consider things such as limiting the vertical speed. Like when you start to fall, like I mentioned before, you do start accelerating quite fast after a moment or two if you don't press up again. So what you could do is you can kind of limit that. You know, you can't like move down, which is another thing I guess you could do if you wanted to consider that. Allow the player to move themselves downwards instead of just waiting. But it's one of those things where it just kind of feels wrong sometimes when you have a lot of vertical acceleration in either direction, really. But you start falling, you expect to speed up a little bit, but then once you start going like really fast, then it starts feeling weird, because you feel like you're really out of control all of a sudden, and you don't want to feel out of control when you're playing a video game. So I'm noticing, I guess the music slowly picks up in its pacing as you increase speed, which changes the pitch of the tune, which means that like every time you die it sounds out of tune all of a sudden because it resets, which I find a little annoying. I think I'd rather it just kind of stayed static. And with this sort of game you expect to die a lot, so you have to listen to that a lot. So I think I'd prefer if it just stayed that way. So it seems a little jerky all of a sudden. really sure what's going on with that, if it's dropping frames or if it's trying to like bounce the music. I can't really tell either way. This is a GTX 970. I mean, it seems to be running smooth, but it's just when I kind of in my peripheral vision look at the outer edges of the pipes, it has a little bit of a bounce to it. So yeah, I'm pretty much always just barely tapping the button for my flaps. See, again, that didn't seem like I should have crashed at all. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I would definitely consider taking a close look at the collision, just make sure it's all nice and tight. You also have to be careful sometimes, even if your collision is like really exact. It's not always necessarily what you want, because it's usually a good idea to make things a little more forgiving than, for instance, having collision match up exactly with the meshes or whatnot. Just helps the player feel like it's more their fault whenever they fail, if the collisions are a little bit forgiving. You don't get into those. See, that's very strange. It definitely feels like I'm not gonna hit anything, and then I do. That was kind of like I wanted to go between the two things, but I couldn't. I just might be able to like mash back and forth real fast to kind of get into a between state, but that'd be very difficult. So yeah, I would take a look at the fact that you are, at least when I play, I'm always just like barely tapping the button. I'm not sure it's really even necessary to be able to like hold it down longer, and you accelerate really fast all of a sudden if you hold it down for just a moment too long. So I would almost wonder if it might be better if you could just like just have it. No, I died. Every time you press the button, it kind of bounces you up by the same amount. So rather than even holding it or anything, it's just on button press instead of while it's held down. That would eliminate the need to do these tiny little taps, and it would also, I mean, if you need to go higher, you can just tap it more than once, you know, that sort of thing. I think that would be pretty intuitive, and with that in mind, you could kind of work out the element of accelerating upwards or downwards really fast, which I don't think is really helping the game. Generally not a big deal as long as I just lightly tap everything. But if I don't actually hit the key all the way down, then that's bad. And with regards to the collision, what I mentioned about, you know, making sure it's, first of all, not only like fair in the technical sense, but also generally a little bit forgiving. This perspective, of course, you have to keep in mind that it can be very hard to judge the distance from yourself and whatever is directly in front of you. A side view makes it much easier to judge distances. So for example, if you think of, so that was kind of unfortunate because I couldn't really move downwards. If you think of like I don't know why I used the mouse there, a first-person game that has like a sword attack or something. because of the perspective you're looking at, it's really hard to judge the range of your sword from a first-person perspective. But if you can imagine like a side view and a side scroller or something, you can see exactly how far the sword reaches. So it's kind of the same thing in this sort of thing, where how far you are from your guy to whatever is directly in front of the guy. It's a little hard to judge, so while it can still be fun in this sort of game, it can help to be a little bit forgiving with the collision sometimes, just to keep it from being frustrating. But yeah, I mostly, I feel like more often than not, when I'm actually trying, I end up dying to a situation where it feels like I shouldn't have run into anything, but I did. So I would say that would probably be the biggest thing I would work on for the future. Aside from that, it is very simple. It is kind of neat though, the concept of it. I would just like, probably for, besides the collision issues, probably for the controls to feel a little more something, I guess, natural. Something like that. I think they could be better than what they are so far. And with that, I think this would be more fun. I might also like to be able to like move down a little bit. I know it's supposed to be based on Flappy Bird and all that, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do for the game you're making, so. It is fun to, it's not fun to crash and fail, but it is fun to dodge through stuff like this, so the general concept I think is there. It's pretty fun, but looks like we unlocked Turbo, at least, so let's go ahead and start that. I actually do like the idea that you can unlock faster starting speeds, because after you've started playing for a little while and have gotten up to those faster speeds and then you fail, then starting back at the slow speed at the start gets a little tiresome, so this seems to make perfect sense. Again, it seems like very light taps is kind of what I'm looking for. It's almost like it's almost unnecessarily demanding in how light I have to tap it. So that last part was, it did look like I ran into the pipe, but I think I wanted to move down a little bit and I couldn't at that part, so. Well, I didn't think that was going to hit. Ooh, almost, almost didn't hit the key. I'm not pressing it down far enough. Oh, I hit the... Alright, so I went a little too high. I didn't have a lot of room there because, again, when you move left and right, you move quite a bit, so I didn't really have a lot of fine control at that moment, but I think... Wait. Oh no, there's no escape or pause or anything. Right now, that'd be helpful. But, yeah, so we got up to Turbo. I'm sure we could get a little further with more persistence, but I think we've probably seen as much as we can for the sake of playtesting. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but pretty interesting game. I definitely think that it could be fun for a nice little time waster, and it is kind of exciting, the idea of dodging through things at high speed in this sort of perspective and everything, so it's cool. But definitely think that there could be some improvements in terms of the controls and getting the collision to at least feel more predictable and fair. And with that in mind, hopefully this was useful for you. If you have any questions for me or anything, you can always let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. And for sure, check out my other videos. Let me know if you want any more playtesting. And I'll see you in the next one.